Hello everyone and welcome to Southridge. If this is your first time joining with us in this format, we want to offer a few tips on how to make the most of this experience. Be sure to crank up the volume during the music and sing along. Don't worry, we can't hear you. Musicians, download the music chart below the video, grab your instrument and play along. For any kids participating with us, don't worry if you don't know the words or you can't read. Just sing, dance, or make music of your own. We're so happy when you join in with us. If English isn't your first language or you experience hearing challenges, we encourage you to turn on the closed captioning on this video or download the transcripts for the morning message. And be sure to download the Southridge app. This is the best way to stay connected and informed about everything that's going on here at Southridge. It's completely free and super easy to use. But for the next hour, I invite you to engage with this experience just as if you were with us, surrounded by a community of diverse, curious, open-minded, and inclusive people, all desiring to tap into the power and presence of God together as we worship, pray, listen, laugh, and grow. There might be some things we do or say today that really resonate with you, and that's great. There might also be some things that stretch and challenge you, and we think that's good too. Ultimately, we encourage you to engage openly, thoughtfully, honestly, and wholeheartedly, trusting that the God we're here to connect with is a God who is above all else love. So as we begin our time together, wherever and whenever you are, whether this is your first time with us or you've been around forever, we hope that for the next hour you feel like you're among friends. Welcome to Southridge. We're glad you're here.
Sick soul, where broken lives can be made whole again at the cross. Your mercy like a cleansing flood, your dying breath to turn this mud into a masterpiece. Talking dread of cross has made a way for everyone. The former things are gone, the new has come. The dark and dread of death has been undone. Once and for all, once and for all. For here the heart of God is clearly seen. We are loved beyond our wildest dreams. The dawning of a new reality. Once and for all, once and for all. It is finished, love has spoken, hell is vanquished, the curse is broken, death defeated, our sin forgiven. Once and for all, once and for all. It is finished, love has spoken, hell is vanquished, the curse is broken, death defeated, our sin forgiven. Once and for all, once and for all, once and for all. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old made new when I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing, now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my
We're a diverse community of imperfect people
who see the church as less of something to go to
and more as a life to be lived and shared with others.
We are continually growing in what it means to love one another,
fighting for unity rather than fighting over unnecessary arguments.
We are living to serve this world in the way of Jesus, serving those in need and those on the margins.
Knowing that friendship truly makes a difference.
So if you're coming with questions or curiosities,
hurts or frustrations,
joys or celebrations,
wondering if the church can bring clarity or hope,
or simply a place to belong,
we invite you to be at home with us.
We invite you to grow with us.
We invite you to explore with us.
And we invite you to belong with us.
Welcome to Southridge.
We're glad you're here.
Well, hey there, my name is Jeff Martins, and I serve as the Connection Pastor here at Southridge. And we're so glad you're participating with us, and we hope this has already been a meaningful time and experience for you. I'm here in our St. Catherine's Auditorium space, and if you've never joined us for one of our in-person gatherings at one of our physical Southridge locations, we'd love to have you consider joining us in person when you feel ready and able. Well, we're so grateful to have this online platform to share in this experience from wherever and whenever we find ourselves. We love it even more when we can gather together as a community. And if you do come out and join us, please come say hi to me or one of our staff or many welcoming volunteers, as we'd love to get a small gift into your hands, just as a way of showing our appreciation for taking your time to come and be with us and join us in person. And as even more incentive, we actually have monthly welcome lunches for anyone who's looking to learn more about our community and wanting to connect with some folks over some delicious food. You can check out our events page on our website to see when an upcoming welcome lunch is happening, and we would love to meet you there. If for whatever reason you're not able to or not comfortable with joining us in person, please know that doesn't in any way exclude you from participating in the life of our community. And if you need to touch base with a pastor for any reason, please simply fill out one of our Connect cards, and we can't wait to hear from you. Now, for those of us who call this community home, one of the ways we practice togetherness and express our gratitude to God and generosity to others is by regular financial contributions. This is one of the ways we can invest our lives in what God is doing in and through our church family, making a difference by meeting needs among us, across our region, and even around the world. All of our online giving options are available on our website, so if you're able to give this week, we invite you to do so in a spirit of joy and generosity, and we thank you in advance for your faithfulness. Well, that's it for me. Now we're going to hear this week's talk together. And as we do, I invite you to remove as many distractions as possible and really lean in and listen in to what God might want to be saying to you uniquely.
Hey, church family. This is John Hand. I am a part of the Welland location, and before we dive in, I want to tell you a story. In late August, my daughter Karis and I left Niagara, Welland, where we live, and we drove 48 hours to Kelowna to take her to school where she's living now. And our favorite part of the trip was on the west side of Calgary, on the Trans-Canada, driving into the Kananaskis Valley, and then through Canmore, and then through Banff, and past Lake Louise, as we turned to go kind of deeper into the Rockies. And as we were traveling, the mountains got larger, and they were starting to turn colors from gray to like purples and blues and even yellows, and they were just towering like on all sides of us. And it was so beautiful. Like, we were completely awestruck with these mountains. And have you ever experienced something so beautiful? It evoked something in you that you didn't like have an explanation for. It's like unexpected. And that's exactly what happened to us. So we're listening to our Out West playlist on Spotify, which includes Coulter Wall and Tyler Childers and Zach Bryan. And so we got the music going, and we've got the mountains going, and peak after peak. And so our brains just didn't know what to do. And so as we were driving, I look over and Kara starts giggling, and then I start giggling. And so we're both laughing at the mountains. And then she starts crying. And then I start crying. So now we are laughing and crying at the mountains, listening to our music. And I start like eyes filled with tears. I'm laughing so hard. I'm like swerving. People thought I was probably like drunk, but I wasn't drunk, I promise. I was beauty drunk. I was drunk on beauty because it was so stunning. Have you ever been drunk on beauty? Like, what makes something truly beautiful? And how would you define it? Like, how would you know if something is beautiful or not? What seems like beauty to you? And have you ever considered that God is beautiful? Like, we say God is holy, we say God is mighty, we say God is in control, some would say. We say God is other. But have you ever paused to say, well, and of course God is love, but have you ever paused to think God is beauty? God is beautiful. Have you ever considered that God is beautiful? There's a quote from a preacher who's passed, Jonathan Edwards, and he says, "We are not drawn to God by duty to God, but we are drawn to God by the beauty of God." By the beauty of God. And so why do you think it is that we don't typically think about the beauty of God when we at our first kind of thought of God? And I guess my answer to that would be that we do not find ourselves necessarily always in beautiful circumstances, do we? As Jeff mentioned last week, like, this is a time of anxiety. We're in the middle of these tariff threats. Anxiety is swirling. There's this uncertainty that seems to be kind of lurking in the air. And many are feeling a sense of betrayal, like a good friend has turned their back on you in many ways. And now we're into an election. And so lots of beauty in elections, right? No, like, there's just ugly, like, all around us. And not only that, there's often seasons of ugly in our own life, our personal lives. I have a friend whose husband right now is recovering from having an operation on a brain tumor. Some of you are feeling job insecurity these days, or maybe you're working with coworkers who are kind of making your life hell, or maybe your children are struggling and you feel so powerless to do something about it and you wish you could. And so I can't think of a better time for us to reflect on the beauty of God than right now. And so if God is beautiful, how would we know it? Well, I think if you're looking for beauty in this world, you will find it. If you travel through the Rockies or you stumble across early flowers in the spring, which we've seen some already, if you are like fixated on a piece of art, if you're reading in a book something so compelling you can't put it down and it's moving you to tears, if you have that playlist that you can't stop listening to and it just goes and goes, this is beauty calling us. And we as a culture will pay a lot of money to experience beauty, if you think about it. And so not only does God make a world where there is beauty everywhere if you're looking for it, God also takes ugly things and turns them into beautiful things. And so how do we know this? And we know this because of the cross. And how many of you think that the cross of Christ is beautiful? How many of you own like a cross necklace? Or, I brought this from home. This is above my desk at home. It's on my wall. I have a cross on my wall. And, it's kind of funny when we think about this. This is a technology used by the Romans to humiliate and to kill people. And we think it's beautiful? Like, why? I mean, have you ever seen images trying to depict like a realistic crucifixion or a realistic picture of the crucified Christ? I think if let's say you were to go back in time somehow with a camera or a high definition video camera, and if you were to take a picture or a video of the actual crucifixion, I think your reaction to that picture would be ugly. Some of you would be kind of feeling faint. Others of you might want to throw up. very few of us would be wanting to stare at it. So what is it about this crucifixion that keeps us, I don't know, captivated by it? We've been talking about this thing for 2,000 years. And then when you think about a literal, like actual crucifixion picture, it's turning our stomach. But then when you see a picture of the cross, like the one that you're looking at, and you see Jesus hanging there, and there's this sense of contemplative mystique that we want to keep looking at it. So what is the difference? Both are Jesus on the cross, but one is the crucifixion, right? That is, we can only see with the naked eye this grotesque, mutilated person. And then the other is the cross. It's not just the crucifixion. It's way more than that. And so when you look at a picture of Jesus on the cross, not just a crucifixion, your brain is seeing what's not there. So, and we don't even know it, but our brains are filling in the gaps when we're looking at that picture, because there's way more happening than just a dead corpse hung on nails on that picture. You're seeing sacrifice for others. You're seeing submission to God, and you're seeing divine love and forgiveness of sin, and you're seeing unfathomable mercy. You're seeing infinite cruciform, cross-shaped, suffering love. That's what you're seeing in the picture, even though it's not there. Did you know that you were seeing all of that? And so when we look at a cross, we're not just seeing, as a journalist would see, a depiction in history. We're looking at it through the eyes of like an artist, like through a portal into captivating divine mystery. So, Brian Zahn, who we've been kind of drawing from for this series, from his book, he says the cross is a portal between death and life, between despair and hope, and between ugliness and beauty. And so Jesus himself, he turns this ugly of the crucifixion, he turns it into the mysterious beauty of the cross. Jesus turns the ugly of the crucifixion into the mysterious beauty of the cross. Do you see the difference? And so what does the Bible say about this ugly death that leads to this beautiful beauty in life? And how does this work in the guts and the ugly of like your life and my life? And so I want you to wander with me over to the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And here we find the Apostle Paul, one of the first kind of early leaders of this like burgeoning Jesus movement. He's writing his second letter to this group of early Christians in this now city, Corinth, but then the city of Corinth in now modern day Greece. And so on your Bible app, you can go to 2 Corinthians chapter 4. We're going to look at some verses here. And there's a lot going on in this passage. And I think for your sake, they won't let me have enough time to unpack all of it. So we're just going to touch on some of it, but it's still rich. It's really good. So in this part of the letter, you see Paul is reflecting on this kind of mysterious paradox. At the heart of Christian conviction is that life comes from death, light comes from dark, and suffering is not meaningless. Okay? That's the theme that he's wrapping this passage around. And if you go on social media or you look around our world today, you see a little bit of the opposite. You see something that tells us that death just leads to more death, that darkness just leads to darkness, that suffering just takes from us and it leaves us worse off, and so we just have to find a way to escape it. And then we see the cross, and the cross is telling us a radically, radically different story. And so I'm here to say that the cross is not just an event that happened in history that we should believe in, although we should believe in it, but it's a way of life where God transforms what is ugly into something beautiful. And I guess I want to say, how can this be? And so I want to talk to three groups within our church in the remaining of our time together. And so our first group, I'm calling the beauty through the broken. This is encouragement to the beautiful. And I want to speak to you first because the cross brings beauty out of ugly. And how do I know that the cross brings beauty out of ugly? Because I know some of you. Like some of you display a beauty through the broken. You see, when we face the ugly in life, we have two options. We can allow the ugly in life to break us down or to break us open. And this group of people I'm talking to right now, you have allowed life to break you open. And so I want to read this passage starting in verse 5. So 2 Corinthians 4, verse 5. For what we preach is not ourselves, but Christ Jesus as Lord, and ourselves as your servants, for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, let light shine out of darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. For we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. So do you notice that Paul is comparing himself here to a clay pot, right? He's a fragile clay pot. He didn't say, I'm an iron box. He said, I'm a clay pot. And he's saying that if you make room for Jesus in your heart, that the light and the beauty of Christ shines in it. Shines in it. It says shines in it. It doesn't say shine into it. It says shines in it. And so this is the light, he says, that looks like the face of Christ. So the light of the knowledge of God displayed in the face of Christ. God looks like Jesus. And so have you ever broken a dish or a clay pot, like you have plants in or whatever? You know that they are fragile. And so how does this treasure, how does this light that's in us, how does it get expressed to the world? Well, according to Paul, it gets expressed through a fragile clay pot. So I wonder, is this what Leonard Cohen meant when he said, there's cracks in everything and that's how the light gets in? But when you look at verse 6, it looks like it flips it, and it's like life will crack you open, and that's how the light of Christ shines out. That's how the light of Christ comes out. Or we can let life break us down. Which do you want for you? There's a lot of people in our church who have been broken open by the ugly of life, and you are letting the light out. Some of you know what it's like to be broken, to be confused, to be disoriented, to be hurt. You've walked through divorce. You have had a dreaded medical diagnosis. You've experienced overcoming that hand of addiction trying to pull you into darkness. And instead of just breaking down, you have allowed it to break you open. And now part of your story is this broken open story. And instead of growing bitter, you have allowed this to make you beautiful in your character. And I see it in you. And so you've learned what Paul says in verse 6, to see the glory of God in the face of Christ. And even as you are fragile and what feels like you're cracking open, Paul nods to this reality in verse 7, where he says this breaking open then releases something like the power of God in your life. And I can see it in you, and others see it in you. And I just want to say thank you that your story is showing us what is possible. So down in verse 11, you can see it says, verse 12, it says, so then death is at work in us, but life is at work in you. Isn't that awesome? Death is at work in us, but life is at work in you. And really what he's saying there is that the death in your story that you've experienced is now giving life to other people. And how does it show up? It shows up when you check in with people in your life group who are struggling. It shows up when you share your story with somebody over coffee and you talk about the darkness, and then you tell of God's faithfulness in your life. It shows up in your failure stories. I love failure stories. Why? Because they give me hope that, like, I'm not the only one failing. Somebody else has come before me and failed, and it gives me hope that I'm not the only one. It actually is hopeful. And so you exude this kind of generosity or this kindness. And I just want to say, can you keep at it? We need you. We need you to be this beauty that has come through the broken, that this light would shine out of the cracks of the clay pot that is your life. And you have these scars that are stories, and you have these wounds that give us hope. And I just want to say thank you. And then there's a second group, and this group is the beauty in the battle. And maybe this is the largest group in our church. I don't really know, but you're trying to find the beauty in the battle, but you can't right now. You just can't see it. And you know that there's more than just pure ugly, but it's more than just the crucifixion. You want to believe that there's a cross, but you can't see it. And I just want to say, I'm sorry that this is where you find yourself, and this is a very difficult place to be. And Paul, in this passage, is just right ahead of you. And so he says in verse 8, he says, we are hard pressed on every side, but we're not crushed. We're perplexed, but we're not in despair. We're persecuted, but we're not abandoned. And we're struck down, but we're not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may be revealed in our body. I'm saying this because right now maybe you only hear the first part of that you are hard-pressed, you are crushed, and you are perplexed and persecuted. Then that's all you can see and hear right now. And maybe you know in your head that you won't be crushed, and you know that you don't have to despair, and you're not abandoned, and you're not destroyed, but it doesn't feel that way. And so for you, I want to say that there is more than just crucifixion, but you can't see it. But there is a beauty of the cross that is for you in this somewhere. And I want to say as pastorally as I can that I'm so sorry this is where you find yourself. In the last 2 years in our own family story, my middle daughter, she a year ago, January, had to be rushed to the ER. And we watched helplessly as she came deathly close to losing her life to a bacterial infection in her brain. And then the rest of the year was like scary and disorienting as we watched her be in and out of the hospital and have to recover for long periods of time. And then in 2023, the year before, we spent that year in and out of the hospital. And it was so dark at times for us. There were so many times where we could only see the ugly of the crucifixion and we could not see the beauty of the cross. And I would just want to say, if you are going through that, please do not let this season break you down. Let it break you open. Can it transform you? Can it bring beauty out of you? We think about this picture in verse 10. Paul says, we always carry around in our body the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may be revealed in our body. Can you think about this picture? He is saying that he's carrying around the dead body of Jesus in his body. Like, what a stark image. And this is what happens when we suffer. Like, we are hauling around the death of dreams, the death of hopes, the death of relationships, or the death of a security or a view of the future. We're hauling it around. And then you see this transformation happen in the passage. He says, for we who are alive are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that his life, there it is, may be revealed in our mortal body. So that death is at work in us, but life is at work in you. He's describing a transformation that's happening in him, and he's offering this transformational hope out to you and out to us, that what is ugly can be transformed. And even if you don't see it, it's there. Can you trust it? Can you trust that there's more happening right now than what you feel like is happening? right now? Can you look at the cross and trust that that beauty can happen to you and in your situation? A few years ago in British Columbia, there was this massive wildfire, and it kind of tore through thousands of acres of land, and the entire ecosystem was just completely destroyed. And after the fire, everything was like black and scorched earth. But just a few months later, something surprised botanists and ecologists who were tracking with this piece of land. The first thing to grow back was a single lodgepole pine tree. And the botanists explained that the heat from the fire actually took these pine cones that were sealed shut with resin, pine resin, and it cracked them open, and it began to release their seeds. And in other words, the fire made them fruitful. Like without the fire, there would be fewer trees, and the fire produced fruit. And so the pain and the disorientation, like, I do not believe that this is God doing something to you, but that it is God wanting to transform you. And some of you, you're still in the smoke. You can't see anything else. You don't see anything green emerging like from this. And the cross says the fire doesn't get the last word. It says that what breaks something open is emerging so that something beautiful can show up eventually. We just don't know when, but we know that it can, and we know that it does. And what I want to say is, don't run from it. Like, stay in it. Like, don't numb or escape. Don't armor up and get bitter and cynical and resentful. Like, please don't. I know it feels better to be jaded. I know it feels powerful to blame God or somebody else or even yourself. But what I want to say is, like, you are not your pain. This does not define you right now. And in fact, this can transform you if you'll let it, because the crucifixion that you're in is actually a cross that's on the other side of it. But you have to stay in it. And so there's something more that's coming for you. We would say, Easter is coming for you. Can you stay in it? And then the third group that I want to invite into this conversation is the beauty for the first time. There's a third group in our church that I respect very much. And I think my heart maybe is more with you even than others who I care so much about. Because at the beginning I said, it's obvious that we live in a world where without the eyes of faith, we just see the ugly crucifixion, and there's no beautiful cross on the other side of it. We live in a world where implicitly we get the message that, like, darkness means more darkness, and death means more death, and suffering is just something that takes from us and leaves us worse off. And maybe you feel that way, and maybe there's like a despair that you have, or an anger that you have, or a cynicism that you have, and maybe you're new to our church, or you're new to church and you're new to faith, and you've never heard the good news possibility that the cross brings something beautiful out of something ugly. And right now, maybe you're like the pine cone, right? You're trying to keep it together, and you're trying to imagine how anything breaking you open could be good. But I just want to say, like, what if it could? What if the cross is the message to you today that it can, and that you don't have to stay armored up? And I get it if that's where you are, and I understand. But I want to hold out to you what seems like a miraculous possibility. And so this is the last two verses. This miraculous possibility, starting in verse 16. Therefore, we don't lose heart, because outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal weight of glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes on not what is seen, but what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. What is this? Well, I want to say what this is it's the miraculous possibility of beauty. What do I mean? So on your screen, you can see the Starry Night picture. I think as humans, we've been saying for about 135 years, that's how old this painting is, that it's beautiful, it's captivating. And I mean, have you been outside at night? Have you looked up in the sky? And what do you see? Does it look like that painting? No. It looks like random faint dots of light in the sky, right? And then it's like, okay, life goes on. Or are we so compelled by this picture because the beauty and the miraculous possibility of this picture is that the world is more than just random faint dots in the sky, but that it's actually, when you look through this picture at the sky, you start to see much more than you can see. You start to see more like with your mind's eye of what's there. Something like more than outward faint random dots in the sky, but you start to see swirling beauty and shimmering light, and it reminds you of this wonder. If you go outside and it like the sky is a wonder, and it's meant to show us that there's so much there happening if we'll only see it. And that's what beauty does. It gives us these eyes to imagine a world where crucifixions can become crosses. And so I just want to say, can you let this crucifixion season turn into the beauty-bearing cross in your life? And in verse 16, it gives us this lens to see what's not there. Though outwardly we're wasting away, inwardly we're being renewed because we are seeing that there's a possibility that's coming for us, that if we would just reach out for it and take it. And maybe there's a resistance in you right now because of this anger and disorientation to just be the pine cone. And I just want to say, what if this was an opportunity for you to reach out to Jesus and to reach out to love and to allow something to be broken open in you? And imagine what that could be. And I just want to say, if you do that, there is something of beauty waiting for you, but you have to let go of control. You have to let go of anger. You have to let go of victimhood and to release it and to just say, Jesus, I need you. Would you take this fire and this pain and would you bring something beautiful out of it? It's a simple prayer. And I invite you to reach out to this impossible beauty and see what happens in your life. On the cross, Jesus took what was most ugly in the world and he made it beautiful. And he wants to do that for us, all of us. And he wants to do that for our church. If you can fix your eyes on what is unseen. At your locations this morning, there's a piece of paper. It feels like cardstock. And this is actually more than just paper. This is paper, but when you plant this paper in ground, in the dirt, it's actually seed paper, and these flowers grow out of this paper. There's something more happening than you can see today. And I want to end this journey by inviting you to receive communion this morning, this ancient practice where we see more than just alcohol-free juice, and we see more than just pieces of gluten-free bread, We see more, right? What do we see when we look at this? We see the body of Christ broken for us. We see the blood of Christ shed for us. We see that in the crucifixion, there's a cross. And when we look through the cross, we find a resurrection and we find a transformation. And that's what we see. And today I invite you, if you want this beauty to be born in your life in a deeper way, if you want it to overcome and kick out the ugly and replace it with beauty in the inner parts of you, then I invite you to receive this sacred moment, this sacrament. And you can't take communion, you can only receive it. You can't take a gift from somebody, you can only receive a gift from somebody. And today, the gift that Jesus is offering our church is his beauty. and to transform the ugly in you into something of beauty. And so there's no magic bullets. I can only offer you like these words and these pictures, and words create worlds. And when you're in a place of ugly, holding out hope for beauty, you need to remind yourself through words that there's more happening than what you can see. And so I leave you this prayer today. It says, today I choose softness over cynicism. I choose compassion with self and others over anger. I choose prayer over blame. I choose wisdom over despair. And I choose to look for the beautiful face of Christ. And on your paper, as the band comes up, I invite you to write down a prayer of intention. What ugly in you needs to be released and die and be buried in the ground so that something beautiful can grow up in its place. So as we enter this time of communion, I invite you to come up to the front to receive communion, and then to take your paper before you receive communion, to take your paper and to bury it in the ground, to write on it your intention, bury it, and then receive the body of Christ broken for you and the blood of Christ shed for you.
You keep reminding me my heart is holy ground, where you are pleased to be. Starting to see it now, and I hear the Father say, you're my beloved one, nothing can prize away. Covenant built on love. When I feel like ruins, you see foundation. You see foundations to build your kingdom here. I'll stop second guessing you. Even when failures come, redemption is what you do. You're the God who makes weak things strong. When I feel like ruins, you see foundations. You see foundations to build your kingdom here. When I feel like ruins, you see foundations. You see foundations to build your kingdom here. And my brokenness made beautiful. It's like you said, all things made new. My heart cries out, build your kingdom here. Let faith like fire burn in our bones. Let hope arise from weary souls. Our hearts cry out, build your kingdom here. When I feel like ruins, you see foundations. You see foundations to build your kingdom here. When I feel like ruins, you see foundations. Yes, you see like ruins, you see foundations. You see foundations to build your kingdom here. When I feel like ruins, you see foundations. You see foundations to build your kingdom here.
We are a community of imperfect people
who desire to put into practice the good news that we preach.
Our faith is not about an hour of watching or attending.
It's about a lifestyle of full devotion to Christ.
Not just as something to believe, but someone to follow.
We don't want to talk a good game on Sunday, only to remain unaffected or ineffective the rest of the week.
So while we gather each week to sing, pray, listen, and learn,
we know that an hour a week will never produce the life change that we so desperately need.
It requires a daily investment of time and training. It takes practice.
And practice.
And more practice.
And when we mess up, we forgive ourselves and each other.
Then help each other get up and keep practicing.
As we go now into the rest of our week,
may we not just be hearers of the word, but doers also.
May the Spirit of God fill us and make us kind and compassionate,
honest and humble,
generous and hospitable,
those who repay evil with good,
respond to injustice with action, overcoming despair with hope.
Let us be known not by what we're against, but by what and who we are for.
And most of all, let us love one another, because God is love.
It's been good to be together, but now it's time for us to go.
In the name of the Father, who loves us unconditionally.
In the name of the Son, who restores our true humanity.
And in the name of the Spirit, who empowers us to live life to the full.
Amen.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope that you felt inspired and challenged by our time together. Now, we know that what we've heard today to become reality in our daily lives, it's going to take more than this 1 hour a week we spend together. It requires a moment-by-moment, 7 days a week commitment to practicing the way of peace and the way of Jesus. That's why we provide a host of ways to continue to lean into God's presence while we're away from each other. As always, you can click the Daily Practices button below the player for daily spiritual exercises to continue to develop the muscles we've started building today. If it helps, you can also opt into the Spiritual Practices notification on our app to get those helpful reminders every morning as you start your day. And if you'd like a more personal conversation with someone about anything that's going on in your life, we invite you to reach out to our location pastors who will follow up with you privately. Simply fill out our Connect card, which you can find on our website or our app. That's all for now. Thanks for joining us and have a great week.